This is the third week in a series in which we're talking about the power of faith in our lives. We're working from a definition that was presented by the man who co-founded this spiritual movement called Unity. His name is Charles Fillmore, and he wrote in a book called The Revealing Word that faith is the perceiving power of the mind linked with the power to shape substance. So we're talking about faith not as an idle belief, not as a deep and profound wish, but as a power that exists in people. It's why when Jesus said, if you have the faith of a grain of mustard seed, you'll say to that mountain, move, and that mountain will move. It will move because of the power of our faith. So we're talking about how to use that in different areas of our life, and today we're talking about using faith in the realm of prosperity, or the abundance of all good things in our life. Every Sunday, I've started off by showing you some physical example. The first day, I showed you a steam engine, and we talked about the power that that steam creates. And then the next week, I had my magic perception glasses that all lit up and changed everybody's color and changed the way you see things. So today, I want to show you another device that most of you are probably familiar with seeing. It's called Newton's cradle. Now, I apologize in advance that it's so small, but if you can't see it from the back, there's a picture of it on the screen for you. This is a device, it's called Newton's cradle because it's based on Newton's 3 laws of motion. It's actually a device that truly shows and illustrates a principle of what we call momentum and the conservation of energy. In fact, if those of you who are so minded, just in case you want to know, this is how this works. So I want to be sure you write that down, because when people ask you what you want to talk about in church, it basically means the sum of the energy of I is equal to the sum of the energy of F. But if that's too complicated for you, here's the simplistic form of it. Change of energy equals 0. Energy can never be lost. Now, I like using this for a couple of reasons. I like using it because I really want people to understand that in this particular spiritual faith system, there is no discord or disagreement between science and religion. Science and religion, as far as we're concerned, are the same thing. That science just is a way of explaining the religious truths that we know. Now, we're really a spiritual movement, but for us, there is no difference. They are the same principles in action in different things. Now, we love science because we can see it. And science essentially says if you can see it, if you can measure it, if it's repeatable, then it's true. And I want you to entertain a thought that as far as a spiritual principle is concerned, if you can see it, maybe from the inside, if you can see its action, if you can repeat it, you will know in your life that it is true as well. For us, spiritual principles and principles of physics are actually one and the same, which is why I love to use toys like this, because this is awesome. You know this thing, you've probably seen it, when you pick up one ball over here, and then you drop it, you know what will happen, right? The ball on the other end will go flying off, because that's Newton's law of energy and motion. So if I take this ball and I let it go, then the other one's going to fall off, right? So all I have to really do is just take this ball right now and just, let it drop and do that. And then you'll see that action happen. Won't you? Yeah. Okay, what's wrong? Why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? I have to what? Oh, I have to let it go? Can you all say that together as one? I have to let it go. Oh, bang, 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 bang. Looky there. You see, it's not only a principle of physics, it's a spiritual principle. You have to let it go. Don't forget, that you can write down. I have to let it go. This is a totally cool thing, because in theory, it would go on forever if it was in outer space with all other certain kind of conditions. But because we have atmospheric resistance and because these steel balls do absorb a certain amount of energy, and I could show you those formulas too, but don't worry, I'm not gonna. It would eventually keep going. Now, what's totally wonderful is I can take 2 balls and I can lift them up like this. Now, if I let these 2 go, you know what's going to happen on the other end? 2 are going to come off. That is really exciting. Now, here's something that's kind of unbelievable. I can take 3 and lift them up. Now, there's only 2 left on the bottom. So this is a little bit disturbing. How is this going to play out if I can get my big fat fingers around it? Okay, I'm going to let go of these 3, and if you can't see it, I will tell you what happens. 3 go off on the other end. Now, it's a little bit messy because, this is a small one. I tried to get the biggest one. There you go. How could 3 come off when there was only 2 to begin with? This is not magic. This is actually spiritual principle in action. And it's based not only on Newton's law, it's based on God's law too. And the one I want to show you is from the book of Malachi. This is where God is speaking. It says, bring your full tithe to the temple treasury so there'll be ample provisions in my temple. But the part I really want you to remember is this part. Test me in this and see if I don't open up heaven itself to you and pour out blessings beyond your wildest dreams. This is a promise. It is as true from God as Newton's law of motion and the conservation of energy are concerned. God has said, when you do this, when you are generous, when you are giving of your life, when you let go, then I will open up the windows of heaven for you beyond your wildest dreams. And that part is really important. Because sometimes we have a dream in ourselves of how we think things are supposed to look and how they're supposed to be. And how God is supposed to make those dreams come true. But this is a promise that says, even beyond my wildest dreams, things are going to happen and come true. Now, you've probably all heard the old preacher joke, but I'm going to tell it just in case there's one of you that hasn't heard it, because it's really true, of the fellow who was caught in the flood and got onto the roof of his house and prayed to God, save me, and he thought God was going to send a helicopter. So some people came by in a canoe and said, hey, come on. He goes, no, God's sending me a helicopter. Some people came by in a motorboat and they said, come on, we're going to take you. No, God's sending me a helicopter. Some people came by in a party barge, for crying out loud. I mean, it was a huge party. He says, come on. He really wanted to, but he said, no, I'm getting a helicopter. Well, you know what happened. The floods came and he was drowned and he died. And he went up to heaven and says, God, what happened? You let me down. And God said, are you kidding? I sent you a canoe, a boat, and a party barge. There are ways in which God provides for us that are beyond the dreams that we're holding. And if we keep hanging on to a certain way in which it's supposed to come to us, we'll miss it when it does. So this is not just a Christian spiritual truth. These truths about our generosity, about our giving into the world, are universal spiritual truths. In the Hindu tradition, it says in the Rig Veda, he who gives liberally goes straight to the gods. On the high ridge of heaven he stands exalted. So it's just a way of saying that generosity is part and parcel of the spiritual truth of detachment, the spiritual truth of compassion, the spiritual truth of generosity, the spiritual truth of giving. In the Dhammapada, which is Buddhist scripture, it says, the wise man rejoices in giving and thereby becomes happy thereafter. See, I really want us to be happy. And hanging on to this, there is no happiness. It doesn't work that way. We live in a world where there's lots of hanging on. In fact, I've met with my financial advisor this last Thursday, and you know how they are in these days anyway. I tried to cheer him up. It's not really my job, but I did my best. And he said to me something. He said, you know, the banks have lots of money and corporations have lots of money. There's lots of money there, but nobody is spending it. We're all hanging on to the silver ball. And it's true that we're living in times that are considered by many as bad as times that were back during what we call the Great Depression. And that's interesting for us in these times. I will not call it bad. I will not call it bad. Because there are some things we learned during that Great Depression. And I think there are some things that we are destined to learn now in these days that we could not learn any other way. Because I'm excluding all of you, but we as a culture have become very greedy. We become very money-centric in our country, in our world. And I wonder, how would we learn to not be that way if it wasn't taken away? How could we be anything else if we weren't almost forced to be? So I'm anticipating in this great world of change that enormous good is going to come. Good that we could not come to any other way. For us individually, it begins with letting go. I love how these truths are important, and there's ways we can use this truth in our life. The first thing we have to do is to know it, that it's true. We're not going to trust it if we don't think it's true. And know it not just here, but know it here. Because the knowing comes from here. It doesn't come from up here. All of our thoughts, all of our analysis don't mean anything. The knowing comes from here. Second thing, once we know it, we have to act. And for some, that acting is actually the letting go. It's not doing something. I'm not pushing this ball. I'm letting it go. Then the last one is kind of important. I love this. Be open to the blessings and wonder. Remember, the promise from God is, I will open up the windows of heaven and give you blessings that will pour out beyond your wildest imagination. So what we have to do is begin to expand our imagination and see, how am I going to be blessed by this? So when something happens, instead of saying, oh my God, this is awful, I love it when we stand and we say, I wonder what blessing is going to come from this. And you can say it with clenched teeth as long as we keep saying it. I wonder what blessing will come from this. Because at least we're being open to the way heaven pours. I would love to tell you a story about that, but I happen to know for a fact that Florence knows an even better story, and it's a story in her own life. And since this is her final day as a ministerial intern with us, I thought it might be really good for you to hear the story from her. Florence Monzon. Yeah.
Aloha and good morning. It seemed like yesterday that I arrived in this beautiful Unity Church of Hawaii, but I have been training, learning, and growing this past 4.5 months, and today I get to complete my ministerial training.
Yoo-hoo, that's the
Thank you, God. And I am very grateful to Reverend Sky, the wonderful, amazing church team, and all of you who gave me this abundance of love and support, and for making my stay here fun and fruitful. Thank you so much. I would like to share a personal story about how God provides when we listen to the guidance within and act in faith, even though we don't know how it will all unfold. In 2003, I visited the Unity Village in Kansas City, Missouri, for the very first time to attend a week-long retreat. I had such an incredible experience at the retreat that I committed to go every year for a retreat after that. So in 3 years that I have attended the retreat in 2006, I was guided again to start the SEE classes like the ones that you're taking here. And in staying at the village, I was thinking it would be great if there is a hotel that could accommodate more people there, in which case there will be more people visiting the village. And so that was a thought, and that was a desire in my heart back in 2003, and now it's 2006. And while in the village for my SEE classes, a man who introduced himself as Howard Morrow, as the development officer at the village, introduced himself to me and said if we could meet at lunch that day. He had wanted to talk to me about some plans in building a hotel in the village. And I thought, oh, how cool is that? I got really excited, and I said, of course, I would meet with you. At lunchtime, he was talking to me about the plans of this hotel, new hotel, and asked if I am willing to make a pledge for a hotel room. So I looked around me and I thought, why is this man asking me to make a pledge? And how did he know that I have a desire for a hotel to be built in this village? And then I thought, I don't even have a job. It had been a year that I had resigned from the bank where I worked, which was my perfect job, but it was a guidance, so I followed through, and our whole family moved to Las Vegas. And so I checked in with God, and I asked, well, dear God, am I supposed to say yes and commit to make a pledge? Well, the answer came from my own voice, loud enough for Howard to hear, and it was yes. And I said yes, and Howard said yes. And he said, it will be $52,000 for a hotel room, and the payments can be made in 3 years for $17,000 a year. And I thought, well, dear God, it didn't really matter how much, right? Because you're in charge. And I thought, $17,000, the first year, it was fulfilled with ease and grace. The following year, 2007, it was nearing the end of the year, and I was still short of my pledge. The last day of the year, 2007, was a Friday. December 31st, and I was still short of $8,500. That morning, I woke up, and Robert was very excited in our bedroom and said, get up, get dressed, I'm going to take you shopping. I'm going to buy you a diamond ring. And I thought, well, Christmas is over, and I didn't even ask for a diamond ring, so why are you taking me shopping? And he said, well, there is a large amount of money deposited to my bank account. And I said, by whom? You better check who made the deposit before you start spending it, and somebody will come knocking at our door asking for that money back. And so he called, and I told him, put the speaker on so I could hear it too. And it turned out that the Veterans Administration made a mistake in calculating his veterans' benefits, retroactive 2004, and deposited the shortage in his account. And I go, wow, that is amazing. How much is it? And he said, $85,000. And this time I was more excited than him, and I go, oh my God, I don't need a diamond ring. Can you just please issue a check for $8,500? And make it payable to Unity? And he said, that's a big amount, because I haven't told him about my pledge up until then. He issued the check, but from the look in his face, I knew that he didn't get what just happened, but I needed 10% of something. I didn't even know that it would come from something. I just needed $8,500, period. And what was provided was 10 times that. God provides in all wonderful ways that we may not know how. But when we listen to the guidance and act with faith, all things are possible. Everything is possible, and nothing is impossible with God. Thank you, God.
So that's a whole new pledge technique. I like that. We don't tell you how much. We just get you to say yes and then kind of tell you. Thank you, Florence. That's awesome. And it really is true. I know it's a true story because Robert's told me often before, I'm always the last to know anything, including that. It's a beautiful and powerful story, and it really shows those three amazing principles. Check in inside first. Find out what your personal guidance is to know for yourself those truths. Then you act in that decision, act from that decision in faith, and then be open to how it will come. I love that Florence made the pledge, had no idea where it was coming from, but it actually came from Robert. How fantastic is that? So it just shows that when the windows of heaven open, we can be blessed beyond our wildest dreams. And that's what I want for you. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes with me for just a moment, please, and take a deep breath. This is a time in our service when what we call prayer and meditation happens. It begins with a closing of the outer world so that we can just be within ourselves. There is a simple musical prayer that I invite you to pray. The words are simple. It says, I am at peace. I am at peace. I am one with the Spirit. I'm calm. I am still. I am doing God's will. I am at peace. I am at peace. I am one with the Spirit, and I dwell in the presence of the Lord. I'm going to invite you to let this music open your heart. I am at peace. I am at peace. I am one with the Spirit. I am calm. I am still. I am doing God's will. I am at peace. I am at peace. I am one with the Spirit, and I dwell in the presence of the Lord. In these quiet moments, dwell within your heart in the presence of God as we come together in the sacred and holy silence.